So I went to the West Bank and I went to places where Palestinians were protesting, and just standing next to them and hearing their stories and looking at from the other perspective. That's where I started to sober up.
Just because the Holocaust happened, that doesn't mean that everything we're doing now is okay. You know, we lived through October 7th, and still, I don't want October 7th to be used as an excuse in my name to carry out horrors against Palestinians. I don't want that.
You are listening to the podcast Women Ending War, where you will hear the voices of Israeli and Palestinian women dedicating their lives to creating a new reality in this land. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Adi, welcome. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too at last.
Yes. Thanks for being here. So, Adi Argov, you start your bio with grandmother. Yes, grandmother first. And also the creator of a very important website called The Daily File, which chronicles what's happening in Gaza, the West Bank, the northern border, in numbers, in data. Very, very important, right? You're chronicling exactly how many people are killed, injured, and all of that.
Yeah. It's at first it was about the West Bank, and since October 7, we started following Gaza with numeric data, but also with events and opinions, people writing their opinions, and all other projects as well as the forcibly involved, documenting the names and the faces of children that are victims of this war.
Yeah.
All nationalities, not just Israelis, not just Palestinians, all of them forcibly involved.
That's hard work, I imagine. Yeah, that sounds, you're very deep in really hard things, some horrible things, yes?
Yeah, for me, sometimes writing down all the data and events and my posts on the social media, it's me screaming. Imagine me screaming, hey!
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I follow you on social media. I saw, for example, you had been writing a lot about the paramedics, those 15 paramedics who...
Paramedics and firefighters.
Who, like, disappeared?
Disappeared for 8 days, and then the rumors were that they were killed, but at last Israel permitted for people to search for them last Sunday, and they were found, well, let me say, not in a very good shape.
What happened?
They were shot. Israel's version is that they were suspected for being Hamas fighters, but they were driving in ambulances, identified, and firefighting. They were first responders, and they were found. The cars were smashed, and they were found. Part of them were tied up, and they were shot. Buried in a...
So nobody can claim even with some kind of accident. They were specifically targeted and tortured, it sounds like, or something.
I hope not. I hope not. I don't know. Nobody really know what happened there. Mm-hmm. But it seems like there was a lot of covering up after. Israel refused to let people search for them. Mm-hmm. They were actually entering Israel, saying coordinated it with the Israeli forces, but the Red Crescent says that they coordinated. So it's the Israeli version versus the Palestinian version. So you don't really know, but we know that the shape of the bodies were not in a good one. And we know that there was a lot of really laying in looking for them, and they were covered in soil. So who knows?
How do you gather that? How do you gather your information? I mean, this is complicated. There are always like two sides to everything, and Israelis say Palestinians are lying, and Palestinians say Israel is covering up. Like, how do you find out the truth and all that?
Let me start, but there will always be a fake. There will be always a chance that I'm reporting fake. Usually fake comes up a few days later. So I get it. But in the last 4 years, almost 4 years that I'm doing it, not many times I reported fake. The thing is that Palestinian, this is the most documented war ever. So there's a lot of videos and pictures and reporters, though no foreign reporters allowed to enter Gaza, but still there are a lot of documentation. And during the last 4 years, I kind of selected the most reliable sources, Palestinian news agencies, and I learned the language. Sometimes they report the truth, but they cover it with all kind of slogans. So if I let go of all the slogans and stick to the data, it's there. And I also reporting a lot from the UN data, and they take most of their data from the health organizations, the one in Gaza. I know many Israelis says, how can you trust Hamas-supported health organization? But still, there's a lot of lots of reporters, lots of organizations kind of trust them. And actually, one of the main, most respectable health establishments says that the Lancet, they say that the health ministry in Gaza underreport many of the casualties. So, it's there. It's there if you want to look at.
But I'm sure you get a lot of pushback from Israelis, and Jews around the world saying, oh, Palestinians can't be trusted. They're all lying. I wrote about that in my book that just came out. I have a whole thing about how much we're trained to say Palestinians are lying. I mean, I've told the story often that, I had this job to write for a pro-Israel organization. And my job description, my task was to find any place that a Palestinian speaks in the media and to prove that they're lying, or to somehow, that was my assignment, and that when I came to a staff meeting and said, why can't we let Palestinians speak? Why can't we let Palestinians tell their stories? Everybody stared at me. It was like, what? It was like I undermined the whole, and of course the next day I was fired. So, and then I think back to when I was a kid, when I was in school, learning Zionism in school, we learned all the time, Palestinians are lying, and we hear this all the time. I mean, we hear this just yesterday. Somebody shared with me. We were talking about this movie, No Other Land, that just won the Oscar, which I saw, and somebody posted on Facebook. They wrote, everybody should see this movie, and I said, I agree. I saw the movie, and I think everybody should see this movie. And then what happens next is that people come up and say, no, it's full of lies. It's full of lies. It's like, how could you say it's full of lies? I mean, it's a movie that's just places a camera inside people's real lives and just, documents what's how could you call it lying? People who've just been living there for generations, but we're so trained into this to say oh, Palestinians are lying. So.
Exactly. It takes me back for the original when I started with it, because this is what pushed me to do. That was my motivation. I need to see, to hear, to sense, to experience it. So I went to the West Bank and I went to places where Palestinians were protesting, and just standing next to them and hearing their stories and looking at from the other perspective. That's where I started to sober up and realize that I was raised on narratives that was half truths. So I have the thing that it's really hard to face the hate that I'm getting. Lots of hate, but lots of support as well. At the same time, there's a part of me that says people, when they have to let go of the narrative that they were born into, it's hard.
Yes.
Your world is falling apart. So you hold on to the narrative and you really, really hold and you actually become rigid.
Yeah.
You don't want the truth to come in.
Because then it all falls apart. It's like this house of cards. You know, the second you start to think to yourself, wait a second, maybe like everything that I dedicated my life to is based on possibly a lie or someone's vested interest, someone needing for their own power or whatever needs are needing from me to dedicate my life to their thing. If you start to really face that, it could make your whole world collapse. I mean, it totally could.
Yeah. Your world is crushing. So it's hard to let go of that. And so some people tend to hate and some people tend to blame and some people. So when I'm sitting here very relaxed, I can relate to that. But my mission is to create cracks in the wall of denial. And I'm considering myself as water, like pushing in through the cracks. And there are already cracks.
Yeah. How do you see cracks?
I don't see any change coming soon. But I feel that within it will take time for people to let go of the narratives or change them or update them, like seeing that we're not just victims. Like we were raised on the narrative of being victims, and we were victims.
But just because we were victims, that doesn't mean that just because the Holocaust happened, that doesn't mean that everything we're doing now is okay, or everything we've done since then is okay. We as a people have not necessarily been able to separate these stories. You know, it's like, oh, well, the Holocaust happened, therefore we can go in and kill, 20,000 children in Gaza. Like, no.
Yeah, well, the victim sometimes most of the time become the victimizer after that. But my grandma, God bless her, she told me she lost all her family in the Holocaust. And I remember back then I was a little child and there was a soccer match between Eastern Germany and the Netherlands. And she said, those Nazis. And I was kind of amazed what that she said. And she told me, my generation cannot forgive. Your generation should forgive and find a bridge.
Oh, interesting.
So I carried it with me. Maybe my generation at the moment cannot forgive what happened in October 7th, but I hope that through the data and through what is going on, people find a bridge.
But we lived through October 7th. We are also, you and I mean, we're grandmothers, okay? You're coming with a grandmother hat. I'm also with my grandmother hat. We also lived through October 7th, right? And yet, we're not I share this with you, the desire to avoid going to the place of hate and murder and saying, well, look at October 7th, therefore everything we do is justified. I lived through October 7th. I have two daughters who were displaced on October 7th, who lived with me for a few months. I have, sons-in-law and my daughter and my son who all have been in the army since then, on and off. I mean, I have one son-in-law who's been in there the whole time, pretty much. So we're still living in it. We're still living the aftermath. And still. So I don't think that the generation of October 7th is just the 20-year-olds. I mean, the 20-year-olds are 20-somethings have their own experiences. But, we lived through October 7th. And still, I don't want October 7th to be used as an excuse in my name to carry out horrors against Palestinians. I don't want that.
Holding both sides, I feel that as society, we didn't let ourselves enough time to grieve and process what happened in October 7th. We just jumped into doing. I'm not a politician, but we jumped into doing and just grieving what happened. The shattering of everything that we knew. And then at the same time, we just jumped in and holding and seeing how we're crashing and dehumanize people.
Yeah.
Thousands of people.
Yeah. We went straight into the military response. Yes.
Thousands of people. It's unbearable.
Yeah. What are you seeing since the ceasefire has ended not ended since Israel broke the ceasefire and resumed fighting and attacking in Gaza. What do you find?
This is a tough one because looking at videos and pictures and witnessing what is going on and hearing stories, people approach me and tell me their story from both sides. For the first 6 weeks after October 7, I volunteered as a psychotherapist to help the victims. So I'm kind of asked every day to choose again and again, to stick into humanity. And for me, it's my life mission at the moment, kind of choosing every day. And I'm seeing lots of things that I cannot believe that we're doing.
Like what?
Can I be frank?
Yes.
Totally frank?
Yes.
Killing, intentional killing, starvation, torture, intentionally killing children.
Israel is intentionally killing Palestinian children?
Those that are professional shooters. Lately, a few of them were kind of interviewed, and they say, well, we stopped counting how many we killed. And they admit that they kill children as well. They shoot them. So
snipers? You're talking about Israeli snipers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't want to judge them personally. I feel that they I call them to resist, but I don't want to judge them. I judge those that make the decisions.
Right.
Sometimes dehumanization happens when they take pictures and videos of themselves wearing women
lingerie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and kind of mocking or singing all kind of song while they're shooting.
Right. There was the Purim story. Did you see that Purim one where they were reading the Megillah, and every time they said Haman, the soldiers started shooting?
There are many thousands,
right.
And I know the Palestinians collecting it too.
So this is so hard. I mean, and people don't want to hear it. Like Israelis do not want to hear this.
They don't want to hear it. We're coming back to denial because I face it and I say, how come? But I'm so absorbed in it and I'm so immersed in it so I can believe that it's happening.
Did you post, was it you who posted about this picture of this soldier watching a row of Palestinians moving back into their homes? And he's talking about Yetziat Mitzrayim. He said, you can all leave.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's, for me, looking at it, it takes me all the way back to pictures that I saw from the Holocaust. Sorry, but that's what I feel.
Mm.
How come we should learn from what we experience as a nation?
Mm.
How come? How come? How dare you?
Mm. This is really hard. I mean, this is hard on so many levels, especially since, like what you were saying before about October 7th. Like, one of the reasons people can't have this conversation is because October 7th, is still so fresh in people's minds. And so sometimes when you try to even talk about these things, people will respond with like, but October 7th, or like that. And so...
Because when you are threatened or you feel you are in survival mode, you split. There's no both sides. Mm-hmm. You can't hold both sides. But this is the way that you can grow, choosing to look. So people choose to go back and say either that or that. Mm-hmm. But the only way out, as I see it, is being respectful for what happened to us in October 7 and respectful to what happened in Gaza and following the West Bank for the last 4 years in detail. So I'm going to say as well.
Wait, so let's talk about the West Bank.
Yeah, observing, witnessing what is going on.
So let's talk about the West Bank. Before we talk about the West Bank, though, I just want to talk for a second about your emphasis on children and babies, right? I shared some of your things. You had a couple of weeks ago, you had a post where you posted the pictures of Palestinian children who were killed, right? It was like a montage of different with their names and their details of when and where they were killed. It was very specific. It wasn't the kind of thing that you could say, oh, this is made up. I mean, it's actual names, actual pictures, actual dates, and where. And I posted it, and I got so much like, what? Where, fake news? Where are you getting it from? What are your sources? And all of that. It's like, it's the worst. We're like, but I felt like I really had to share it because the story of the children is just, it just is. And as a grandmother also, like, we're mothers, we're grandmothers. And like, how can we look at this and say, oh, they must be lying?
This is the part of me, of the mother, the grandmother, calling out for other grandmothers and mothers to stand up and say, enough, enough. Also, it's a complementary for data, the big data, the more than 50,000 fatalities and kind of reaching 115,000 injured, wounded. And this is our big numbers, but the little one, the one that was 3 years old, and his name was da-da-da-da-da, and me usually saying forcibly involved the name and saying he was here, and he's not anymore. And the pictures, the faces while they were alive, while they're still smiling, for me, it's a rehumanization. It's me standing in front of the humanization. No, they were human beings.
Right.
And focusing on children because they are the most innocent, as I see it. And as we are, as adults, has to stand up and protect them.
Yeah. It's so interesting because the issue of dehumanization comes up all the time in my podcast. It's like we talk about this all the time. And I think that what you're saying is very, very important. I mean, I think there are two things that you're doing that feel like they combat the dehumanization. One is what you say, those faces, giving it a face and a name. And the other is the facts, the numbers, like data. It's your data. You can't fight that.
Yeah. The amount of people usually say no, there are not many. It helps them to feel okay. Well, we had no choice, but I want to people know that when you drop 1 ton of explosions on a house, so many children died because of that.
Yeah,
I want people to know that, and at the same time, their faces. Who were they?
Yeah. So you have now a special protest going on about the children, a silent protest. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, it's not me organizing. Because I call them angels. Few women that stood up and say, they address those of us that don't feel really well in the protests, the big protests, calling for democracy, but only for Jews, as I feel it. And they say we have to make presents for those that were killed. So silent protests, standing with pictures of children that were killed since March 18th, when the ceasefire was broke. And we're standing in silent protest, holding candles, and each one was with a picture, a name, the date that they were killed. Not really negotiating with people. If people approach us and ask about the children, we'll give them data, but in the same info. But we're not trying to convince people. We just stand there silently. And I was amazed how many people were in shock. I could see when I was standing and I could see their faces, I call it the dance in their face, the way that they change from shock into sadness and realization. This is actually happening. Very few approach us and say, shame on you or stuff like that. They just took off. So it's going to expand even more. And from next Saturday, we'll have in Haifa and in Jerusalem as well.
So you're in, do these protests at the same time as all the other protests, but if someone wanted to find out about it and join, how would they do that?
They can approach me on social media.
Great. Okay, so one last question I have.
Or they can join if they see people standing. Join.
Great, thank you for that. Before we talk about the West Bank, one more question I have about Gaza, which is the hostages, right? So here you are talking about all the bombing, right, and calling for an end to all this. And so some people are like, well, we have to do this because of the hostages. But then now many of the returned hostages are on the front lines saying, no, it's true. You have to stop bombing Gaza because also the hostages are at risk. I mean, Yarden Bibas went on 60 Minutes and said this. He said the bombs that Israel is throwing on Gaza are risking the hostages' lives every minute.
This is the first crack of the wall of denial, realizing that the bombing can kill also the hostages. Stories coming out more and more, and people realize that it doesn't go only one way. So I welcome it in a way, because I do believe that the only way to bring them back home is through ceasefire, and negotiation.
Yeah.
Well, reality check.
Yeah.
And it's time. It was from day one. It was time, but we were minority saying that.
But now you feel like more and more Israelis are coming to that.
How can you let them be tortured?
Yeah.
And still bomb them.
Yeah.
And they more and more stories leaking out, and they tell the story that they were afraid from the bombing.
Yeah.
Sometimes more than the prisoners. So
we've been hearing that for a long time. I mean, the very first hostages that came back a year and whatever long ago also said that they were mostly afraid of the Israeli Air Force, of the bombs.
Because Israelis should realize that we have the power. It's asymmetric. We have the power. We have the airplanes. We have the bombs. And we can choose if we want them back home, bring them back home through negotiations, or bomb them. This is our choice. I don't trust Hamas to choose, I trust me.
Yeah. So the West Bank, let's talk about the West Bank. You started the Daily File 4 years ago to chronicle what's happening in the West Bank.
Yeah.
Why?
First, witnessing.
Witnessing what?
I was, it started in a protest in al-Fahim, not the West Bank. I joined the protest of those that protest against the high rate of crime, of fatalities due to crime in al-Fahim. I remember that one pretty well. It was February 21. And police was very brutal. I was standing there, seeing it in shock, and I understood that I must document it. If I will not document it, nobody will believe that will happen. Maybe as an Israeli Jew, people will believe me. So I started my first Facebook Live broadcast, and for 3 hours, screaming, shouting, and I saw, okay, I need to give it a voice. So I understood that I don't know much, and I need to learn more. So I joined activists in the West Bank, helping them with sheep herding, accompanying the herders to help them, or by standing in protests in towns like Beta, south of Nablus, and joining the protests in Sheikh Jarrah, in eastern Jerusalem, and just witnessing, standing there in front of Israeli soldiers and being privileged as I am, and being suffocated from tear gas, and being afraid of live kind of fire, shooting.
In Sheikh Jarrah, for example, the protest was about demolitions, house demolitions. The IDF was coming to. Is that the one you're talking?
Displacing people that live in the neighborhood, and for the purpose of making this neighborhood Jews only.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but meeting Palestinians, hearing their stories, seeing that they are not violent necessarily, they are angry, they are depressed, but they witnessing and saying, I need to tell the story, I need to collect, I want to know. I understood that through the Israeli media, I cannot know. I'm getting the selective version. So I started following and reading and listening and following groups of activists, their reports. And I started writing and documenting it, understanding if I will not document, nobody will know.
That's so powerful. That's so important. My Amira Musalam, she's my occasional co-host, and she is very actively encouraging people to do the kind of work that you're doing here. She encourages people to come and stand and just be present. It's the nonviolent presence. When people are there, just stand, watch, and give witness and say, in a nonviolent way, and say, no, this is not just. No, this is wrong. You know, that's a very powerful deterrent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And respect. Mm-hmm. Or being, learning to let go of my ego and narrative and standing in a kind of a wallflower, respecting and following what they tell me to do, not pushing myself and saying what they should do. That was quite a teaching. And being welcomed. And I also met, and I'm meeting in more and more Palestinian telling me that they learn about Israel, that they can do that. Well, especially those that in the West Bank, they consider Israel as settlers or the army. Those are the Israelis that they meet. And they meet other Israelis that believe in human rights.
And it changes perceptions also in the other direction.
Exactly.
It also humanizes us.
Changing their narratives as well. It's asymmetric. Hello. But at the same time, like meeting more people and giving them hope that there are people out on the other side that see them.
Yeah. Also, what keeps coming up on the podcast is that since the ceasefire started, the beginning of the ceasefire in Gaza became an excuse to escalate violence in the West Bank. Yes?
Exactly. When you follow the details and you follow everyday events, you can see patterns.
Yeah. What do you see?
And what I saw in the ceasefire, there was they started attacking especially refugee camps, 3 main refugee camps, Jenin, Tulkarem, and Nur Shams. Nur Shams is near Tulkarem as well. Those are under attack for more than 2 months already. Deporting thousands of people. We're talking about 45,000 of people, kicking them out of their house, giving them few hours notice in advance, go out, and then demolishing their houses. And actually, Israel very clear with we're gonna demolish the refugee camp, and you have no place to come back to. Also, rise in shooting, kind of. I know there are orders the way you should, when you can shoot someone and when you cannot, but they are not there anymore. And also kind of escalation in the settlers' violence, accompanied by soldiers taking part in settlers' attacks.
That's what Amira also said. Amira Musalam, who I mentioned earlier, she had this experience. She's from Bethlehem. Her family's been in Bethlehem for hundreds of years. Her grandfather was the mayor of Bethlehem. And they had an attack a group of settlers came and attacked their family home and basically took it over. And they wanted the army to come and help, and the army came and supported the settlers instead of the family. So her family's in the middle of, that happened, a few months ago, about 6 months ago or something.
Well, it's escalated since October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, before that, but there are a few points of escalation, and the last one is in the ceasefire. Few days ago in Masapoyata, what happened? This Masapoyata from the no other land, in a small community called Jinaba, settlers attacked herders, injured 5 of them. One of them is 15 years old, and he is in a critical state at the moment, accompanied by soldiers. Few hours later, based on a false complaint by one of the settlers, a soldier came, took out of their houses all the men of the community, detaining 22 of them for releasing them 17 of them later. Part of the injured were taken. And then during the night, more than 100 soldiers came and just smashed all the houses. That was awful, awful soldiers.
Yeah. Those are our kids, soldiers. It's really... I've been to Atwani, where Basil is from. Basil, the director of No Other Land. I met him. I didn't even realize it was him until I saw the movie, and I was like, oh, wait, I know him. We've met. Oh, I've been to Atwani. I didn't realize that Atwani was one of the villages that was... I didn't put all those connections together until I saw the movie. But actually, the day that we met Basil because we had this group of women, Israeli and Palestinian women, who were in this dialogue group, and dialogue group was run by these 2 women, one from Modi'in, one from the Maccabim, and one from East Jerusalem. And they had a connection to, they ran this business together, and they were connected with this other women in Atwani. So they invited us to Atwani to meet the villages, and we had lunch there, and we were inside a cave. They were living in a cave, just like the movie was showing. And it was weird. I was like, today, and like in the 21st century, people are like living in caves. And it was like the whole thing was, anyway, during that meeting, we met Basil, and he gave us a talk, and he talked about his work. And the night before, he had been beaten up. He was still recovering. He was still recovering from having, and it was like weird. And I was still like not fully understanding everything. And I was like, what does that mean? He was beaten up, but he had just come back from the hospital. And it's like, these aren't things that you could make up. I still had in my head, all those voices of saying, no, though, you can't trust any, all of that. And then I watched this movie and I was like, oh, I've been there and I saw that and I met Basil, and he is he's a very gentle soul. Like he shows in the movie, like he's very gentle.
He's gentle, and the word that the Palestinian word for what they're doing is sumud. Sumud means sticking to the ground, kind of resistance. And the sumud of those in Masapoyata is about sticking to the ground, not being violent, mostly. It's different from other towns, sometimes they go to violent resistance. But there are so many levels of, and Basil represent being in sumud and documenting, telling the story, being the storyteller.
Storyteller, that's right.
And Palestinians lately, for the last, I say, 10 years, they document. They learn to document. The activists actually the activists that are being there, they know that they cannot fight. They're not going to fight the soldier, not the settlers, but they document. And documenting is one of the most threatening acts towards the Israeli army and settlers.
And that's what you're doing, right? Is that the stance
I'm doing a different kind of document. I'm kind of organizing all the information. I see myself as organizer, kind of making it more accessible to people to read or approach, kind of summarizing it, summing it up and saying, this is it.
But this is really important. I mean, what you're doing is so important, especially since there are all these fights. So, is it fake news, lying? Like, you're bringing you can't make this stuff up. You come with the facts and the details and the documentation. So important.
Thank you. This is my active hope.
Hope. This is what brings your active hope?
My active hope is, active hope is different from hope. Hope is, waiting for something to happen better. But active hope says it doesn't really matter with the results. You have an intention and you stick into it and you do something. Every day you do one step towards it, doing. This is my active hope. This is my activism. I kind of...
active hope. I'm totally going to adopt that. I like that. Hope as an active activity, as something you're doing. Hope is something you do.
You do what you can. Mm-hmm. And I can do it.
You can do it. That's fantastic. Okay, one last question. What's your vision? What do you want to see?
I want to rest.
Oh,
take a break. My vision. Let's go for a wild vision. Women out there in the world standing up and saying enough.
Standing up.
Enough. This is our time.
Mm-hmm.
Enough with the killing. More realistic vision is like in terms of more Israeli knowing about Palestinians, meeting.
Knowing Palestinians, meeting, breaking all that dehumanization, rehumanizing.
More meeting, including Arab parties in the political arena, or meeting Palestinians meeting Israelis, first of all. And the more current one, stop the killing, stop the war.
Stop the war.
Ceasefire now.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yes. Amen to all of that. Tov, Adi Argov, The Daily File, mother, psychotherapist, grandmother, and activist and storyteller. Thank you.
Toda.
Bakasha, thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for being here today. You've been listening to the podcast Women Ending War. If you like this, please subscribe, share, like, and comment. Links to our channels on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple are below. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Substack. In peace, salam, and shalom.